Welcome to the American Med Spa Association podcast, Medical Spa Insider. This week, AmSpa founder Alex Thiersch is speaking with California Chapter Chair Stacy Grissen, MSN AGNP-C from Aesthetically Pleasing Med Spa, Florida Chapter Co-Chairs Michael Zanetti from Erasable Med Spa, and Julie Davis-Hunter from Pura Vida Body and Mind Spa.
Okay, everybody. Welcome to Medical Spa Insider. My name is Alex Thiersch. This is the podcast for the American Med Spa Association, and we are very, very lucky today to be talking about something that we have been working on here at AmSpa for a very, very long time, and we have finally been able to put it into a reality. We have, as many of you know, AmSpa is a national association devoted to providing resources to the medical aesthetics industry and to help the industry grow in a safe and responsible manner. Primarily, we provide compliance help and help on training so that folks can be safe and profitable at the same time. What we've learned over time is that many of the issues that are coming at us from an industry perspective are coming at us at a very local level, or even a hyper local level, where it's local medical boards, it's local nursing boards, it's local state legislatures are introducing various rules or legislation that has a direct and immediate impact on the ground. And the other thing that we found is that many of these folks who are making these rules, with all due respect, they're wonderful people when they're not at work. They tend to not know a whole lot about the industry and how it works. And as a consequence, we're seeing some kind of incongruous, I guess is a euphemism that I'll use, ways in which they're starting to implement some of this regulation. As a result, we have been wanting for a very long time to open up and implement state chapters, which are intended to be, local organizations, part of AmSpa, where folks can meet on a state level, start organizing on a state level, start trading information, learning about best practices from each other, and perhaps more importantly, from our perspective here at AmSpa, help us and allow us to help them effect change on a state level, and at a minimum, have a seat at the table. So when some of these laws and some of these things come into play, we've got the ability to have an impact. And unfortunately, what we've seen is a lot of these laws and a lot of these initiatives get kind of pushed through without us even knowing about it. And we're trying to track it on a very high level, and it's difficult. So we've now launched state chapters in a few states, and we are very lucky to have on the AmSpa hotline three individuals who are helping chair their states. We've got Michael Zanetti, who is the co-chair from the state of Florida at Erasable Med Spa, and then his co-chair, Julie Davis-Hunter, who is with Pura Vida Body and Mind Spa in Florida as well. And then we are very lucky to have Stacy Grissen, who is the chair for California, Aesthetically Pleasing Medical Spa and Aesthetics in Encinitas, home, I think, of the Karate Kid, but I'm not 100% sure. We're going to look that up and find out afterwards in case any of you are wondering, like I was. But welcome to all of you for joining. I'm very, very excited to have each of you. And I know you are all busy. And I want to make sure we get to kind of everything and all of you and touch on really the reasons that we're doing this and give folks a flavor for what they can expect in the future. It's not just Florida and California. We also have other states, Georgia, I want to say Tennessee, and then there's one more which I cannot remember, but Utah, that's right. And really what we did is we started the ones where we had the most immediate interest, and that included folks who wanted to take time out of their day to be chairs and to help us kind of put this into reality. And so let's get into it. I'm just going to go by where we are kind of on my Zoom screen. Michael, I'm going to start with you. So why don't you and then we'll throw it to Julie after. Because we'll talk about Florida. Florida is one of the states that we wanted to make sure we got on the map right away as far as a state chapter. But I would love to have your thoughts on just what you're hoping to accomplish from this. Feel free to give a quick little high level description of yourself and your medical spa, and then what you're looking to accomplish from the state chapters and why it's valuable.
Sure thing. Well, thank you for the kind intro, Alex. Yep, Michael Zanetti with Erasable Med Spa in Tampa, Florida. And I think for us, this journey, we started over a decade ago. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary this year, which is very, very exciting.
It's awesome.
And we've seen the industry change quite a bit as we have evolved with it. And for me, I would say that the biggest thing is understanding what the rules of the road are and really how we can shape and influence what the industry is going to look like. Frankly, it was the Wild West when it started, and in some ways it might still be considered that. But the reality is that's not good for any of us. And when we got our start, we really looked at how to do it the right way. We, meaning my wife and I, were former Army officers, so we had a very real appreciation for structure and formality, and doing things by the book. And so we just naturally gravitated to an environment where we were not just going to simply dial it in and say, well, this is what somebody else does. We really wanted to make sure that we were having some standards that would be best practices and were something that could be emulated and copied, and people would look at and say, this is how we should operate on a day-to-day basis, so that ultimately we all have good competitors, people that are doing the right thing in the industry, very, very successful, but growing it in a way that's not going to attract negativity, that is not going to put up unintentional roadblocks. We really, really have enough trouble as it is focusing on the business of aesthetics without, shooting ourselves in the foot. So very excited to be a part of this for Florida. Huge market, huge state. There's a lot of dynamism here. And I think that by taking the lead within the states of saying, look, this is how we can structure this, we can be a roadmap and a template for how to go and engage at the state level with the regulations and the requirements that are going to impact each of us. And very excited to do that with Julie.
That's awesome. I think it's really well put. And one thing you said, and you mentioned this when we were talking before, a while back, you used that phrase "good competition," which I think is a really interesting but insightful way to put it, because we know there's going to be competition. What we don't want folks trying to undercut, doing things the wrong way, skipping steps, cutting corners. And I think that's a really great way to put it. Julie, you are also from Florida. Both of you have decided to put your leadership egos aside and do co-chairs, which is amazing. Thank you very much. That's a really, I think both of you have your own unique skill sets that you bring to the table, but I'm excited to see what you guys can do. But please tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you're looking to accomplish in the state of Florida.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I'm actually quite honored to co-chair this with Michael. He's very sharp, and I'm thrilled to work alongside him. So I'm glad that we're co-chairing this. And so my background is actually one in healthcare administration and legal. I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. But I started my business largely as a day spa 7 years ago. I'm coming up on my 7-year anniversary, as a matter of fact, in December, and grew that into 2 locations now, one being a day spa, one being a med spa. And so my challenges are somewhat unique because I'm also dealing with different regulatory bodies on the day spa side. So I, at one point in time, was practicing law. So I am a former lawyer. And for me to be, to find it as confusing as it is to navigate this business of aesthetics, having the ability to read statutes and still say to myself, I'm not quite clear what is right here. I've even reached out at times to my own attorney, and she said, well, one person might say this and one person might say that. So I think, just to add to what everybody's already said here, I think it's really important that we, through AmSpa, have a way to influence, how things get regulated going forward, and to definitely hone in on what it looks like to have this thing called good competition. I can't agree with that more. When I started my business 7 years ago, I was the only person here. I essentially had to educate the market in my particular area, and today, there's 6 people in a 5-mile location around me, 5-mile radius. And so, having good competition can be beneficial in that everybody kind of holds prices where they need to be because we're all practicing safely, hiring the right people, doing the right things, versus having some people who are not so knowledgeable coming in and kind of undercutting how they do things, putting patient safety at risk. And quite frankly, we've had this happen just recently where somebody went elsewhere and had a really bad experience that was not good. and it really feared them away from ever having another medical aesthetic treatment. And so that's what I would say is a good example of what bad competition looks like. So I think, I think that we're doing the right thing here by trying to advance our industry in a positive way. It's going to grow, so let's help grow it in a right way. And I think, AmSpa, seeing that the state chapters would really help do that, I'm really happy to see that we're doing that, so we can get to that local level where we need to iron these things out. So,
yeah, I think it's long overdue, to be honest, and it's something that we've been thinking about for a long time. And unfortunately, with you're all small business owners and manage practices. When you have a small business, which is what AmSpa has been, it's you're trying to keep the train on the tracks at the same time you're building more track in front of you. And so it's been tough, especially with the way the industry is growing. So I'm really glad that we took kind of a pause and we were able to bring in Kristen DeMacco, who's our head of membership, and really spearhead this initiative. So I'm really excited to get this going. And by the way, Julie, we call ourselves recovering lawyers. That's the proper term. You're never a former lawyer. You're recovering, because it's a long process. Stacy, we will get much more into the benefits of Karate Kid and the impact on your practice. But for now, California, I mean, congratulations on being in California, which without question is the most complicated state to navigate. Although Florida is not far behind, I have to say. Lately, they've certainly tried to do their best to kind of catch up. But California is a very, very interesting place. It is. We have a saying whenever we talk to folks who are looking to get into the industry or invest. We say, well, if you can set it up and make it work in California, it'll work anywhere, because it's certainly the most restrictive state. But thank you again for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're looking to accomplish in the great state of California.
Can I say I'm a recovering Californian?
Well, I don't think you are recoving, because you're still there. So
I've thought about it, though, because it is really tough. It is super, super hard, but I don't know anything else. So, and by the way, for the record, I did used to have a poster of Ralph Macchio on my wall. So who knows? Maybe it was subliminal. So anyways,
I think it was.
My name is Stacy Grissen. I am the owner and founder of Aesthetically Pleasing Medical Spa, which I started back in 2003. So I would say I'm going on 21 years. So I've seen the full gamut. It's interesting because Michael had said a few minutes ago, which just kind of startled me. It's actually exactly what I've never thought that I was doing, but truly what I was doing is I really want us to have safe competition. I'm constantly shocked by what's out there. And years ago, so the reason I got into this, and I was really passionate about it originally, and I think I've said this before to you, Alex, is I would say probably 15 years ago, we had just gotten past the recession, and then we started hearing about a task force that was going out and targeting nursing-owned medical clinics. And that did come to my neighborhood. And I'll tell you, that made me really aware. That was a very scary time, because I realized if my competition wasn't doing what they were supposed to do and have best practices and practice, legally and ethically, the board was going to go after them. And so it was a scary time. Their concept was they had task force from the nursing board trying to find people that were practicing without, medicine without a license.
Right.
And so that was news to me, because we were kind of the wild, wild west. We really didn't know what we were doing, and we didn't have any guidance. We went to the board several times up in Sacramento and asked for that assistance. So that's where I am now, is I do want to help my community. I really strongly believe in community and collaboration. So that's one of the things I want to do in our chapter, not just for regulation. I think my concept would be to eventually, because I know you're allowing each chapter to have a little bit of a different framework and do what they need to do. We have such a huge state, just like Florida, that we're going to create regions possibly. And so we're looking for committee members that, like a subcommittee that can take over regionally, and then we'll come together as a group virtually every month. And so that's how we're trying to do it. And I just want to get the pulse on what's happening with all this stuff with legislation, because it's a scary time.
Yeah. I agree. And I mean, California, it's got the fifth largest economy in the world. So it's obviously a state that needs special attention. And just to kind of maybe reset a little bit, because you're right. It's one of the things that's been challenging for us is that the way aesthetics, well, medicine in general is set up is that it's governed state by state. So every state can be sometimes very, very different. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, in our industry, because there's number one, it's misunderstood, right? So there's a lot of folks who started off on the spa side and then moved into aesthetics. There's folks who are fully in medical aesthetics but have added on spa treatments. So you've got estheticians, you've got PAs, NPs, RNs, doctors. Everybody is kind of involved. And we found that the medical boards and the state legislatures really just don't know how to deal with us. And so organizing on a state level is not only helpful, it's necessary, because when something happens, it is done on the state level. And by way of just, some of the things that we're dealing with, there are currently laws that have been introduced, and these aren't always in big states. Oklahoma, Rhode Island, Alabama, a few in the South. There's been some in Florida and some in California, but typically what we're going to see, and the reason that we need to have very local involvement, and and I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on this next, is that where things tend to go a little sideways is when it's not kind of through the normal process of a bill becoming a law, but it's when you have things like the State Board of Health, the medical board, the nursing board. They have authority to put in, not only put in rules and regulations on their own, but they have the authority to enforce on their own. And when they do that, they tend to be enforcing based upon what they're comfortable with. And what they're comfortable with is not medical spas, not medical aesthetics. They tend to not know what we do. The thing that I always tell folks is they look at us like we are nail salons offering Botox in the back alley for, $5 a unit that we buy from China. Like literally, that's kind of the reputation that we have. And I think it's really incumbent upon us to change that. So I'm curious, just from a overarching standpoint, because one of the things that I think is important to get, and so we got Florida and California, two very, number one, they're very active states, and obviously probably the two biggest states when it comes to aesthetics in the country, with maybe Texas and New York being others. What are you seeing in? Let's start with Florida. Michael, we'll start with you. What are some of the things that you're seeing on the ground, either from competitors or whether it's, enforcement action or whatever it is, that makes you kind of think, wow, this is something that we've got to get control of right away? Because I certainly don't want to scare people, but the idea here is to make sure that we get folks engaged and involved. And the best way to do that is to make sure they understand why. And some folks I think don't really get that. So I'm curious what's like, what's going on the ground in Florida, and let's start there.
Well, I think probably the biggest issue in the last 12 months or so has been the evolution of independent practice for nurse practitioners.
Yep.
The nurse practitioner and PA divide still exists in some regards, and so there's not as much clout for the PAs for getting their independent practice. But I think what's coming to a head is the realization that in medical aesthetics, NPs and PAs are oftentimes the one leading the charge in terms of performing the services and really getting the expertise to deliver what people are expecting in the med spa experience. And that doesn't always line up with the way that boards and other regulatory bodies think that they're going to see it. It's really the intersection of retail business or retail service business with the practice of medicine. And for that reason, everyone's trying to figure out how do we delineate this so that we can get to a world where the people who are doing most of the work on a day-to-day basis in the industry can actually be the ones responsible for it, as opposed to simply having to request supervision from someone that frankly may not really know as much as they do, because of the way that the regulations have been crafted. So, there's an argument to be made for safety, but there's also one that it's just purely economic interests, where there's rent seeking, to use the economic term, by organizations, entities that are looking to profit without necessarily adding extra value or providing something that's a better outcome for a patient. So that's what's been moving in the last 12 months. And every session, it gets a little bit closer to becoming a reality. So for me, I'm really interested in seeing how the state will finally shape that so that they can come to terms with the fact that people that are NPs and PAs are doing a ton of the heavy lifting, and to keep them boxed in is probably not going to be helpful to patients and just not helpful to the industry as a whole. And so let's work together to collaborate and come up with a structure that's going to make sense for everyone.
Hey folks, it's Alex Thiersch. When it comes to injecting in the face, safety is more than skin deep. One wrong move could cause serious injury, hurt your reputation, and possibly endanger your business. That is why AmSpa partnered with the Academy for Injection Anatomy to create the AIA Advanced Cadaver Course, the most thorough and advanced facial anatomy course in the industry. Created and taught by renowned board-certified plastic surgeon Dr. Chris Zurich, one of the foremost facial anatomists in the world, along with his hand-chosen faculty of the most experienced injectors in the industry. Students experience firsthand and close-up the anatomy of the face so that they can inject safely and confidently. Unlike other cadaver courses with large groups or limited access, the AIA Advanced Cadaver Course provides small group instruction with a high faculty-to-student ratio and a limit of 4 students per cadaver specimen. Everyone who attends gets a chance to inject real product and then dissect cross-sectionally to see how close they came to vessels and other important structures of the face. This hands-on cadaver lab follows a full day of instruction on facial anatomy from our world-renowned faculty, including discussions of complication management, rheology, and an introduction to the use of ultrasound in your practice by Dr. Steve Weiner, one of the pioneers of using ultrasound with facial injections. At this 2-day course, students learn how to avoid common danger zones, how dermal fillers behave, and the best places to place product for safe, outstanding results. More than 3,000 aesthetic injectors have improved the safety and efficacy of their injection techniques with the AIA Advanced Cadaver Course. Now it's your turn. Visit americanmedspa.org/AIA Advanced. Start your journey to safer injecting today. The AIA Cadaver Course will be in New York City on September 20th, Nashville on October 18th, and finally in Orlando on November 8th. See you there. Yeah, we've seen many states are struggling with that right now, even states that have implemented, and you have nurse practitioners who have independent practice. There's confusion there around what they can do, what they can call themselves. And we've had a few instances where medical boards or nursing boards have shown an interest in nurse practitioners just because they don't understand it. It's like, how can a nurse practitioner be running a medical spa? That doesn't make any sense, even though they drafted the rules themselves. Julie, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this too, as a recovering lawyer and someone who's been involved in healthcare administration for a long time. I mean, there's so much to do, and we're at such an early stage in the process, but things happen quickly, and when they start to happen, and we're seeing this happen right now, when they start to happen, they start to kind of steamroll. And I'm curious, Florida has a reputation for, number one, being one of the hubs of aesthetics, but also there's a lot of kind of wonky stuff that goes on there. And we've seen, like cement as used as fillers in people's buttocks. I've seen that, and I've seen some folks. But I'm curious what your thought is on kind of the temperature in Florida and what you're looking most to accomplish.
To be fair, that's not just Florida that's happening.
100%. I was just calling it out because it's
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Gotcha, girl.
I think the interesting thing about Florida being very unique is that we are one state, But yet, if you look at South Florida versus North Florida, where I'm located, they almost don't look like the same state at all. So by way of example, some of the things that you just said, I'm not suggesting that they never happen in Northeast Florida, but we don't hear about it. This is really, it's really a bit wild in South Florida. Yeah. And I mean, we really have back alley things happening there. There are some really egregious things that happen both in plastic surgery and in medical aesthetics. So I think it's not just medical aesthetics that is a bit off the rails. So it is a very interesting environment in the state of Florida, because it's like we want the state to be able to come together in agreement on how to go forward. But you really have almost these competing interests within the states. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that pans out as we start to get members into our state chapter, and really to see what kind of influence they're going to want to have. And, we're hoping to find people that want to influence this in the right and the positive way. So that's one thing. And then, the other thing that I hope we can see change, and it will definitely not be something that happens quickly, but I still am hopeful that we can see this start to evolve. And you alluded to this, the complicated mess, which is we have all these different boards, so for me, who has some of those spa services, we even have to deal with the massage board. So, we have all these different things. And what's ironic is they don't talk to each other, so to speak, right? It's almost impossible to run these businesses because there's all these different rules and regulations. Half the time when you put them together, they don't even make any sense.
Well, and often they conflict sometimes.
Correct.
Really.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, it's a really interesting dynamic. I mean, I'll give you an example. This literally happened to us, and it was so, and this seems is a perfect example to share with those that are listening, which is, we decided to bring an infrared sauna in to our day spa location, where we also provide massage. Not in a million years would I ever thought that, having made the decision to put an infrared sauna, which is a dry sauna, in my building, I would then, by the massage board, be required to install a shower. Which then meant it has to be an ADA approved shower. So, I mean, really making that one business decision that I never in a million years thought I had to do legal research for, right? Even having been a former or recovering attorney, it just didn't even trigger in my brain that I would need to research that. Right. And so lo and behold, here comes the massage board for the annual inspection. And, we got hit with, hey, you can't do that. They were very kind about it. So that was nice. And we were able to fix the problem. So I was very grateful for the kindness, but I think we really need to try to figure out at the state level, from state to state, because we know it's going to be reserved to the state, right? So we have to learn a way to create a space for what medical aesthetics is and let us govern ourselves. By another way of example, that's how the bar works, right? For attorneys, we have bars in the state. And who decides the rules of the bar? The attorneys who are practicing in the state. And so they have good ethical rules that come out, and rules that are clear and easy to follow. And, I would just long for the day where we could say, if you own a medical aesthetic business, these are the rules and regulations that you need to live and conduct your business by. And instead it is just, well, it's a windfall for the attorneys for sure, because
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like fishing out of a barrel once they get one of us as a client, right?
Julie, that's brilliant. Has anybody thought of that? I mean, that's the first time I've ever heard that.
Which thing?
That the bar, the attorneys are overseeing it. And so if we had a governing entity, that's the first time I've ever heard that.
I mean, it's a pipe dream probably, but it's what I think really, I think it would really improve patient safety. I think it would improve the ability to do business, because all of us are in business to make money. We all have families to provide for, whether we're actual, injector type providers or like me, who's just the business owner. We all do this hard work, that we just put in so many hours and everything. And I genuinely think the majority of people want to do the right thing. Yes. I really do.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of the problem is that we are, like, for me, for example, I didn't have a business background. I'm a nurse practitioner. I was a clinician primarily. I had a passion. I was good at this, and I just ventured into it. And I had no idea what I was getting into. Now, granted, this was at the infancy of the industry, but like still now, these young ones are coming in and they're embracing this with a good heart. Like they're seeing these other business owners that have been doing it. They don't understand all that's behind the scenes. Those owners don't even know. And we're just like kind of muddling through it. And there is no regulation really that's, in their defense, in the board's defense, Julie, and, everybody else, your particular situation with an infrared sauna, how would a governing entity do that? Because that's such a unique thing. Like me, I have an MA that I don't even know what her scope of practice really is, because and there's all different levels of MA. You could deem an employee an MA if they get certain training and they do certain skills. It should be regulated. It should be a set thing that we can just refer to, a book, a playbook or something. And then those little unique things we dig in and try and research. But I like the regulatory idea, a governing entity.
Yeah. Well, the other issue that kind of is problematic is, like in law, there's, you go to law school, there tends to be a certain level of requirement that you need to get to pretty much be entered into any state bar, right? There's some differences as you go, but with aesthetics, medical aesthetics, there's really not. There's not a board certification, right? There's not a physician certification for medical aesthetics. If you're a plastic surgeon, obviously, or a cosmetic dermatologist or whatever, you fit. But if you're an ER doc or a family practice physician, which is candidly the majority of the folks who are coming in right now, or an NP or a PA, you can't go somewhere and say, okay, I'm now certified in aesthetics. There's that level of consistency has not happened. And that's problematic, because when you get these medical boards, and I think bringing up the massage board is key, because the boards of cosmetology generally govern aesthetics from the outer layers of the skin. So estheticians, they have a role to play here too, and they can be very, very effective in gumming up the works when they want to get in there. So yeah, all of these things this is all to say that this is a complicated mess. The regulations are there. It's just very difficult to decipher. And even for attorneys. And so we've had long discussions about things. And you're talking about infrared, think about, things like, weight loss treatments, and you get into body sculpting, like the cool sculpting, which, it's not a laser, it's not, zapping anything, but it's still impacting tissue. So, these are the kinds of things that we want to really get into. And what we're struggling with on a national level is we try to track, we pay a lot of money for a service that tracks legislation nationally. In every state, when something is introduced or even kind of talked about but filed formally, we get notification of it. The problem is, a lot of times this stuff isn't even going through that kind of process. It's done on a much more local manner, where folks are talking about it, or you hear something through somebody else, or somebody gets investigated, and it becomes really, really difficult. We could go on all day. I'm curious, Michael, what are the next steps kind of for you all in Florida? I'm happy to go into a little bit about kind of what we're trying to do structurally with this, what types of benefits you get. We're trying to set up a whole hub for you all where you can communicate with one another. You'll have, the ability to kind of have a website hub where you can make announcements. We're obviously communicating. We're providing all the membership benefits of AmSpa, and giving you the ability to work with us and tell us what you need. But what are you looking for from a next step in Florida? And then we'll go on to California next too, because there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, I think the way that Julie and I have really talked about it is that there's two tracks to take with the program. One is tactical and the other is strategic. So on a tactical level, we're really focused on what would be described as a mastermind approach, where we're going to provide the resources and the conversation opportunity for people in the aesthetic space, ask the questions for the local market that they're in, and say, hey, look, these are the mistakes that I've made. These are the lessons that I've learned, some of them very hard. And I want to share that knowledge with you, because people, I think, respond better when they can apply it to their unique situation. So we absolutely want to take that tactical approach. Strategic approach is we're still trying to create that runway for the industry in Florida. And that's where the legislative component will come in. That is where the conversations will happen, where we can shape in the direction of the industry, knowing that that's going to take more time and it won't happen as quickly. But we have to lay those foundational blocks in order for us to get there. So we'll do both concurrently, but that is the general idea. So the more people that we can get to join us, you can learn as you go, but you can also help to shape the direction of the industry in our state.
Yeah, I love that. And and the other thing that you'll have is access to us and to AmSpa's national leadership, so that, for instance, we've got lawyers in the state of Florida. We've got the ability to as part of your mastermind process, we can offer different speakers and different things and different tools. So I think that's really cool. California, Stacy, what's your next step there? Like what have you kind of done so far, and what's the next step that you're looking for?
Well, it's not as eloquent as Michael, but it's pretty much that with another layer of it. It is actually exactly a mastermind consideration or mindset. I was involved with something called Aesthetic Masterminds, and it was so educational. All of the providers were doing things pro bono. They were giving a lot, like giving back, paying it forward. That's kind of how we're shaping it, because those AMM, which are two good friends of mine that started that, it was always ABC. It was all but California. And I think that's why we're wanting to create our own little group here, but we're also wanting to do more like a community. I think most of these people that we will be embracing into the group are practitioners, not just like attorneys, sorry. It's more the community, and these people are caretakers and people persons, and they feel like an island. And if they feel that community, they're going to rise up and they're going to be able to really collaborate better so that we can come together for a unified structure on regulation. So it's kind of how we're doing it, but we're also going to have an educational component, like all of that, kind of like the masterminds. So the only thing is my father-in-law passed away. So then I had to cancel a couple of meetings. So we haven't really officially done all of our talks yet. So
that's okay. We're part of the issue that why we're happy to have you all is that, things come up, right? It's really difficult to kind of get these types of things off the ground and rolling. It's a lot harder than I thought it was. I mean, back in the day, I was like, state chapters, let's go, let's do it. What's the holdup? But it's really, there's a lot of moving parts, right. and I'm so grateful that we have you all. We've got the Army and the law mixed together. And I mean, what can go wrong?
I want to sit in a room with you two.
Is there anything that you want folks to know out there? I mean, it's this is obviously a new thing. We're going to have a lot more information. We're going to be ramping up, adding different states. Obviously you folks are starting, so you're going to be further along as we go. But as we move closer towards Medical Spa Show next year, we want to start thinking about doing some sort of a national congress thing where we can all get together and exchange information. I think that's a really cool concept. What do you want folks to know about, and I'll just kind of throw this open, about what we're doing, what the industry is doing, and what, why it's important to join on a local level?
I'll go first.
Sure.
I'm just going to do the little shameless plug. I think it's really important that everybody that's listening to this really get involved. If you're in the industry, whatever capacity, esthetician, aspiring to go into the business, I think you absolutely have to be a part of this. And there is no requirement. You could be completely naive to this industry and really want to learn about it. And really, probably you would be 10 steps further than I would ever if you're ever interested in starting in the industry or getting into the industry. I think AmSpa is also, I'm going to give that shameless plug. You guys are amazing. And I think the educational component of it and the compassion and the drive to really protect us, I think that's why you started it, right, Alex?
It is 100%. I mean, as a recovering, back then I was a full-time lawyer.
Oh, wow. Well, I would love to hear from you guys. Like if anybody reaches out to us that's interested in this and interested in joining, I think individually we can give you information.
Mhm.
Um, I I think the sky is the limit as far as I'm concerned, as far
Yeah,
as what we can do with this.
I
I
agree.
don't
I agree.
structure, so
I agree. And the structural part is something that, we can provide a lot of that structure. What we can't provide is the kind of grassroots, marketing and collaboration, which you all can do. Any other thoughts, Stacy, Michael, about what you kind of want folks to know about this, and or anything else you're excited about?
Yeah, I would say, there's an old saying. It goes something like, if you don't have a seat at the table, then you're probably on the menu. And I think that that is very much what it applies for our industry right now. And if you don't take the opportunity to get yourself a seat at the table and shape the direction of the industry, you are going to be at the mercy of those who do. And if you're okay with those outcomes, then more power to you. But chances are things are going to shift, things are going to change. And it would be a real shame to look back and go, wow, if only I had raised my hand and stood up and done something, maybe my business wouldn't be in the position it is today, because now I'm at the whims of someone else. So I invite everybody to come and join and get a seat at the table so that we can plot a course together.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think one of the ways
it's
that
gonna
we
be on
always
the
put,
menu.
yeah, well, you don't want to be on the menu, and things are happening, and they're happening right now. There's bills that have been bandied about in various states that restrict the ability of RNs to do certain things, restrict the ability of even PAs to do certain things.
Yeah.
There's a group out there that is pushing the theory that only physicians should be providing these treatments, full stop. And and it's mostly just based. I think someone said before that it's well intentioned but uninformed, and so I think there's a lot that we can do. Julie, any thoughts?
I think they summed it up pretty well. I would just say from the Florida State Chapter, one of the things that we want to start by doing is, as we welcome people in, we're going to ask for some survey responses that will help us better understand what we need to serve to our state members. So definitely, if you're in the state of Florida, jump in, join, and help us guide this into what you want it to be, in terms of, topics and things of that sort. So to the point that both Stacy and Michael already made, get involved. That way it's what you want it to be. Just because we're the chairs doesn't mean we're, up here without taking advice from those that are members. We want to hear from you, and we want to know how we can be of service. We're volunteering to do this, but we definitely want to be serving our community the way that needs to be. So we'll be really looking for input from everybody.
I think it's a great point. You are all volunteering your time, which I think is, we're very grateful for, and I think that's what we need. I mean, what's happening right now is we are, even though we've got 40 years plus, or almost 40 years of experience right now on this podcast, we are still very much on the ground floor in this industry. We're building the foundation, and we're also building and developing the future leaders of the industry. So if you have a passion for medical aesthetics and you want to be a part of it, like, there really is an opportunity right now to become a leader in the industry. It's kind of crazy when you think about, like, what could this look like in 10 years from now? And our projections of growth are, and if you talk to the folks at, like, Allergan even, it's the growth potential and the amount of providers that are needed, skilled, trained providers, is far more than we can manage right now. So there really is an opportunity to be a leader, and that includes things like speaking. And I think we should have a big flag football game at some point. With the different states, maybe, or volleyball. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But
I'm 5 foot tall, no volleyball.
well, okay. Then, well, there's
Too many concussions in football. Come on.
um, but Yeah, no, I think this is really cool, and I can't tell you how grateful we are that you all have volunteered your time to do this, because it's no small task. I would like to make sure that everyone has information on how to get a hold of you. So feel free to give out your email or your cell phone or whatever it is. We will obviously be posting tons of information on state chapters and how to get involved as we go. But let's just kind of go down the list. Michael, final thoughts, and then where they can get a hold of you if they want more information.
Yeah. Great opportunity, I think, like I said, for people to get involved. The platform that AmSpa has put out will probably be the best way for people to get a hold. Again, go to the website, erasablemedSpa.com. My last name, Zanetti, Zanetti, at erasablemedSpa.com. If you'd like to email me, welcome to chat with anyone who may be so inclined. And again, really looking forward to kicking this off in earnest, in person, probably within the next month or so. And beyond that, if anybody has any other suggestions, please reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to incorporate that.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is a fluid process, right? Like, we want to make sure that we do it in a way that is receptive and informative. And if there's folks who have information, we want to hear it. Julie, how about you?
Yeah, I would definitely encourage people to participate in the portal that AmSpa has created for the state chapters and ask your questions in there. The great reason to do that is that probably somebody else has the same question. So put it in there. I have an alert set up where I can respond to those daily. So everything that comes in, I'm seeing it real time. And so I'll try to respond to those very, very quickly. I just think it's always great because, again, everyone will see that, right? So it's a great way for others to kind of see the answers that are coming back. And then also, if anybody wants to contact me directly, I don't mind at all. So it's julie@pvmedspa.com.
Yeah, and just to kind of put some context in that, we have set up the ability for state chapters to have like their kind of landing page, their own portal where you can communicate privately with one another. You can post things about your particular state. So if you wanted to reach out to the chairs, you have the ability to reach out to them. Announcements, meetings, we are more than happy to help put together in-person meetings. I think there's definitely that desire to have meetings in person. It becomes a little tricky in states like Florida and California, where you're, several hundred miles away, but nevertheless, I think we can make it work. Stacy, how about you?
Okay, let me first say, I want to make sure that everybody knows that if you're wanting to be a part of this chapter, each chapter, it's free for the first year. You do need to be an AmSpa member, so keep that in mind. Yes. But there's so many benefits to that. I think that there's no question that that's something you have to do. For me, yes, you can use the portal. I have not yet fully comprehended how to use that yet. So I don't want to miss anything. And if it's something that's private, go ahead and email me, sgrissen, Grissen, @yahoo.com. I'll answer that. I just ask that people are more positive on the site too. Let's keep this elevated and really move this along and get some traction.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And of course you can always reach out to us, americanmedspa.org. Obviously we're hosting this. We've got all the information that you need on our website, and we'll have much, much more to come very, very soon. And then we can also answer questions if you haven't, and we're happy to get you in touch with the folks from Utah. Let me get this right. We've got Utah, we've got Tennessee, in addition to
Texas?
We have Georgia, Tennessee, Utah, California, and Florida currently launched, and a lot of interest for other states. So if your state was not listed, and there's a lot of you that weren't, I promise you we're working on getting you up too, because there's a ton to do. And so please, the more interest and the more assistance and the more involvement we get, the faster we can do it. So again, thank you so much. And thanks to you guys for your help. We'll get you back on and kind of check in on your progress. I think we'll also probably do some more local ones where we can talk about what's going on in California and in Florida, because there's some interesting things, and bring some local experts in. And then anything you want, just let us know, and we're happy to provide it. But thank you so much for your time, and everyone listening. We look forward to your help and support in this. I think it's kind of exciting. I think it's going to be a real cool thing in the years to come.
Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys. All right.
Thank you for watching the Medical Spa Insider podcast. Please make sure to subscribe to our channel for future videos and podcasts. For more information about the American Med Spa Association, please check our description below.